Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going on a wild ride, a grand tour of some of the most extreme places you can imagine. We're talking from the loneliest spot on Earth all the way out to the icy edge of our solar system. And trust me, some of the things we're going to find are pretty surprising. Okay, so here's our itinerary for this trip. We'll kick things off at the edges of a continent, then find the loneliest place on the planet. From there, it's off to an island with no mosquitoes, yeah, you heard that right, and the country with the most lakes. Then we're leaving Earth behind for our own familiar but alien moon, and finally, a far-off icy world. So let's just dive right in. First up, we're starting our tour right here on solid ground, looking at the very edges of the world's biggest island continent. So when you look at the four corners of Australia, it's amazing how different they are. Up north, you've got the super lush tropical rainforests of Cape York. Head east, and you'll find the famous lighthouse at Cape Byron. Out west, totally different vibe with the massive Zoutdorp Cliffs. And then way down south, in Tasmania, you've got the wild, windswept Southeast Cape, a place where it feels like it's raining pretty much constantly. Okay, so we've seen the edge of a continent. Now, let's zoom way out. We're talking global scale, because we're about to find the single most remote spot on the entire planet. And here it is, Point Nemo. This is what's called the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. Basically, it's the point in the ocean that is farthest from any land. And when I say far, I mean far. The closest piece of land is more than 2,600 kilometers away. You are, quite literally, in the middle of absolutely nowhere. So that begs the question, right? If you're at this super remote spot, who are the closest human beings to you? Your first guess might be, I don't know, someone on a boat, right? Well, the actual answer is literally out of this world. Get this, the closest people to Point Nemo aren't on a boat or an island. They are orbiting more than 400 kilometers straight up aboard the International Space Station. How wild is that? The closest humans are in space. That just shows you how truly remote this place is. And you know, this incredible isolation makes it the perfect place for something pretty specific. It's a spacecraft graveyard. Seriously, space agencies aim their old, defunct satellites and spacecraft right for this spot. More than 260 of them have ended their lives here, including the famous Mir space station. And yep, in 2031, the ISS itself is scheduled to join them. Okay, from the loneliest place on Earth, let's pivot to something a little different, an ecological anomaly. We're talking about a biological mystery involving an entire country that's missing one of the planet's most, shall we say, annoying pests. So here's the puzzle. You've got Iceland, right? Its neighbors, like Greenland and Norway, have tons of mosquitoes. But Iceland? Virtually none. It's a mosquito-free zone. So what's going on here? How is that even possible? Well, it turns out it's kind of a perfect storm of conditions that mosquitoes just can't handle. First, the weather is super erratic. You get these sudden freezes and thaws that just completely wreck their life cycle. Second, the water in the lakes and ponds is just too cold for their larvae to grow up. And third, the actual chemistry of the soil and water is inhospitable to them. It's this 1, 2, 3 punch that just keeps the entire country mosquito-free. All right, so we've seen a country with unique water chemistry. Now let's look at a country that is absolutely defined by its sheer volume of water. You've probably heard places like Minnesota called the land of 10,000 lakes, right? But what if I asked you which country has the most lakes in the entire world? Any guesses? The answer is pretty mind-blowing. Yeah, it is not even a competition. Canada has almost 900,000 lakes. That's more than 4 times the number 2 country, Russia. It's just an unbelievable amount of fresh water, all thanks to the glaciers that carved up the landscape during the last ice age. But this is where it gets really crazy. If you only count lakes over a certain size, about 25 acres, Canada is home to 62% of all the lakes on Earth. Let that sink in. A single country has the majority of the world's lakes, and that, of course, has a massive impact on everything from its wildlife to its ability to generate huge amounts of hydroelectric power. It is, without a doubt, the nation of lakes. Okay, buckle up, because for our next stop, we're leaving Earth behind entirely. We're heading to our closest celestial neighbor, a place that we all recognize in the sky, but is also a profoundly alien world, our moon. We see it all the time, but it couldn't be more different from Earth. There's almost no atmosphere, which means it's completely silent and covered in ancient craters. The temperatures are insane. They swing from boiling hot in the day to bone-chillingly cold at night. And liquid water? Nope, none on the surface. It's a world of total extremes. So where did it come from? Well, the leading theory is pretty epic. It's called the giant impact hypothesis. The idea is that billions of years ago, when the Earth was still young, a planet-sized object, about the size of Mars, slammed into us. A huge cloud of debris was blasted into orbit, and over time, that debris clumped together to form our moon. A pretty violent birth. All right, for our final stop on this grand tour, we're heading way, way out to the cold, distant edges of the solar system. We're going to visit a tiny world that sparked a huge debate all around the globe. Pluto. When Pluto was first discovered back in 1930, we thought it was huge, maybe even the size of Earth. But as our telescopes and methods got better over the decades, our estimates for its size just kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. By the time we got a really good measurement, we realized it was tiny, way less than even 1% of Earth's mass. And this shrinking size was a huge part of why its status as a planet came into question. So what's the deal? Why isn't it a planet anymore? Well, back in 2006, the official definition got an update. To be a full-fledged planet, a body has to do 3 things. 1, orbit the sun. 2, be big enough that its own gravity makes it round. And 3, it has to have cleared its neighborhood, meaning it's the dominant gravitational body in its orbit. Pluto checks the first 2 boxes no problem. But that third one? Not so much. It shares its orbital space with lots of other objects in the Kuiper Belt, and that's the one rule it breaks, making it a dwarf planet. So we've gone from the coast of Australia all the way out to the distant, icy Kuiper Belt. It just goes to show you how many incredible, bizarre, and extreme places exist, even just in our little corner of the universe. And you have to believe we've only just begun to scratch the surface. It really makes you wonder, right? What other extremes are still out there, just waiting for us to find them?